What about this warning about on Hong Kong stocks? It's one of many things the White House has been uh, pushing out against China with. What do you expect it to hear, and can it really make a difference?
Well, I think it's a responsibility of the Biden administration to inform U.S. companies about the risks of operating in Hong Kong in this new environment over the past year since the national security law has been passed and implemented.
So, we have a story coming out just in the last hour or so on Bloomberg talking about how Biden is now continuing the very tough on China policies. While Trump was in the White House, Democrats didn't really seem too much on board with most of what he did in this area. Now Joe Biden himself seems like, tough on China 2.0.
Well, I don't think it's correct to say the Democrats weren't tough on China during the Trump administration. I think this is an area where there is bipartisan consensus on the need to be realistic about our relationship with China and to take the steps necessary to boost our competitiveness while at the same time respond to the unfair practices that China is employing in China and, frankly, in third country markets.
Wendy, as we're about 6 months into this administration, we are starting to get a more kind of clear picture of what that policy towards Beijing looks like, right? Do we sort of eventually get to a point where we're setting up with just as much pain and uncertainty as we did with the Trump administration, or do you still feel that this administration is different in its approach?
Well, I think it is different in many important respects, particularly with respect to really working with allies and partners and not going it alone. Furthermore, the Biden administration is taking its time to develop a strategy towards China and not just kind of throwing measures at the wall and seeing which one sticks. So I see a much more deliberate, thoughtful policy. It may turn out to be as tough or tougher than the Trump policy, but that's more a factor of the state of relations between the U.S. and China rather than any partisan approach.
Right, because that sort of leads me to my next point, which is wondering whether this relationship fundamentally, regardless of the approach and the niceties that could be taken by either side, is there just a fundamental strategic competition that is going to drive the tensions going forward?
Well, that's my view. I mean, we are in competition with China, but I think there's a recognition in the Biden administration we need to address our own strengths at home in order to compete with China. We can't blame China for everything. Establishing a level playing field with China is important in the trade and economic area, but also we need to boost our competitiveness at home. And I think that's fueling the bipartisan drive to pass this Innovation and Competition Act in Congress so the United States invests money into our own equities, our own assets, industries, and make ourselves more competitive.
So, Wendy, how about the potential digital trade deal, which would not include China, but many of the leading Asian nations? What kind of response do you expect to see from these other countries to joining an agreement that does not include China? Are they enthusiastic or a little bit hesitant?
Well, I think the emphasis on not including China is not the correct way to go. I think the administration is looking at what they can do in Asia to kind of promote our values and our view on where things should be going and to participate in the rulemaking. Many economies in Asia already are working among themselves on rules and setting rules and standards. So now is the time for the United States to join those other countries as the rules are still being made. So we're not left with kind of accepting what's out there. And if you look at the recent regional comprehensive economic partnership agreement in which China participated, with respect to the digital chapter, it's very weak. There are lots of exceptions. And even though the rules may seem robust at first glance, you need to look at the footnotes. And it basically says it's up to each country to decide what it wants to implement. So I think there's a huge opportunity here for the United States to help make the rules with other countries in this area. And, it may not include China, but so be it.